Today we have Justin Spears with MXI Consulting. Thank you so much for coming on today, Justin, and sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Cindy, for having me on. Really excited to be on the show today.
Yeah. All right. So, first question is tell me about, or what you're able to tell me about your time in the military. What did you do, and what was your favorite duty station, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in the Navy. I went in as a hospital corpsman, and then after my A school, I got selected for aerospace medicine technician school. So I was 8406 and absolutely loved it. Got into aviation medicine and was very fortunate. I was stationed out of NAS Pensacola, down in sunny Pensacola, Florida. So love it down here. And I was attached to the Navy Medical's Operational Training Command. Specifically, their detachment was the Navy's Aerospace Medical Research Institute.
Oh, very cool. And yet that's not what you're doing right now, right? So not medical.
No, it's I do not practice medicine. My some of my injuries along the way prevent that now. But a lot of what I learned actually in the military and a lot of the programs that I ran in the military and built actually are part of the story that led me to where I am now.
Awesome. So, how did you come up with the idea to start MXI Consulting?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this actually about 8 years ago. I thought about it for a year. I think names are, very important for businesses, and I wanted to tell a story. So originally, it was called MetaX Innovations, metanoia being a Greek term for a new way of thinking. So I wanted people to have a new way of thinking about doing business, not just, from the moral and ethics side, but also really the creativity side, very extrinsic focus, teaming and partnerships, things like that. X being for Christ. I think that Christ should be in every business. That's how I think about things. And then innovation is, what's the next thing that we can do? What's the latest, the greatest, and how can we bring that to our communities, to industries? And so that was the birth of MXI Consulting.
Awesome. And so what is your why or your mission?
My mission, really, I want to empower entrepreneurs. That's my goal. So, I've honed a lot of my studies. I even did my MBA actually in entrepreneurship and innovation because I want to deliver a service on products to entrepreneurs to help them take, their ambitious ideas, their dreams, their visions, and make them realities, not just for themselves, but also to impact the communities around them.
That's a great mission because I mean, doing a job, not that there's anything wrong with just doing a job, but when you have the feeling that goes along with it, you reach new heights, and it makes so much more of an impact than if you're working for somebody else. Um, so for those that are doing that, I think that's an incredible mission. So what do you love most about what you do?
Really, I think it's the opportunity. For years, I was focused because I have a huge entrepreneurial background of doing this for larger companies and the military. And so it was always, hey, let's plan this out, let's start building, let's start the implementation. And hopefully, somewhere along the way, the CEO, the commanding officer, they're going to get that aha moment to really understand what I do. But now, working with business owners, it's not the aha moment, it's the opportunity to let them see what the results look like of, wow, this is a legacy. Oh, wow, I can sponsor this event now. Wow, I can impact my community. I've worked with a number of businesses that, over the years, they're creating 40, 50, 60, 70 jobs. That's major for a small business to grow to that. Not just the economic impact to a local community, but you took an idea you had, and through working together, you now have a multi-year plan where you're seeing growth, and so it's not always about, I mean, the revenue is great. That's why we do it. But that revenue translates into so much more that we see that community impact now. And so that's where when I see business owners and entrepreneurs impacting their community, like that's not even the aha fact. That's like, wow, I can't believe that my idea from years ago is actually working and it's making a difference.
So when would you say is an ideal time for a business to reach out to you or an individual to reach out to you? Like, where in the process would you say, like, before they start, a year in, or is there a certain feeling that they should have, or maybe they're stuck, or what's ideal?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I get asked this a lot. And so I primarily work with companies from the ideation to medium-sized range. So, they first, whether they put a business idea on the back of a bar napkin one night, because I've seen that a lot of times, where somebody sends me a picture and it's like, hey, I got an idea. It's like, all right, let's talk. Let's see where we can flesh this out to all the way up to $400 million businesses. What's the next phase, what's the acquisition strategies, things like that. So I really like to work with people along that spectrum, okay, of ideation to medium size. The primary opportunity for people to work with me is when they have an idea that they want to start growing. So if they're sustaining, they're doing well, but they're not ready for growth, whether that's a mental approach, or they're in a model where, hey, we just had a huge round of growth, let's make sure our infrastructure is good, things like that. When they're ready to start growing, that's when they should reach out to me. So that could be the ideation phase of, hey, let's flush out a business model, let's start making some contacts, let's look at what does it mean to even start a business, let alone build the infrastructure early on and get into a planning phase for execution. But then your small businesses or your startup to small range, how to raise capital, how to pitch, well, what is the end game here? What do we want to do? Let's deconstruct that and start building you verticals and workflows and things like that along the way. So you can start building out your implementation plans and identify your resources. So kind of the theme here you'll see me talk a lot about is I'm a big planner. I love to teach companies how to plan, primarily because while we've seen this huge growth in the last 10 years of startups, we've also seen a huge death of startups. So it's throwing things at the wall and hoping that it sticks. One thing sticks and let's run with that. That's not a business plan. So I like to work with people to teach them, hey, what are your strategic plans? What are your initiatives? Let's build these out. Let's build out sub initiatives, 2 week sprints for implementations, things like this. So I'm very structured about how to do this over a multi-year period so that we have those touch points. We know that, hey, what I do on a Monday morning ties to, initiative 3.1.7.1. I know why I did it.
Yeah.
I think I like to teach businesses how to do that because once you know how you're doing something, now you can take what you know you how to do and start going after the things you want to do.
That's a great point. And I think I've read somewhere that the typical business or entrepreneurial, like, endeavor, a lot of businesses fail, what is it, at the 3-year mark?
Yes, yeah, 3-year mark, absolutely. And so, I see so many businesses that 2 to 4 year period is, I mean, it's the most amount of stress I've seen business owners in, because that operating capital or research and development capital, that initial investment, it's usually for 2 years, maybe three, and so now you've exhausted that. So what are you doing next? Are you at a new seed round of funding, or are you your go-to-market strategy was year two and now you're in a sales mode? They really don't, a lot of them really don't know. And so that's where early on, when you first launch your business, you need to launch it with a plan.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like a multi-year plan, not just, hey, I know some people, they're going to help me. I see that a lot. People, getting out of the military, and it's like, I know some people. It's like, yeah, but I know a lot of people too. But even my partnerships, I evaluate like a business plan. I actually rate partnerships. I do performance reviews. We have key objectives. Like that's actually how you do business with people. And there has to be objective measures along the way of everything you do so you know when to pivot.
Yeah, that's a good point. And usually, like, even when it's that 3-year mark, if they're like, it doesn't that's not where the final draw is. It's already happened prior to that point, right? So that's where they could really use MXI early on and have that, blueprint of what what needs to be done next and what steps to take, because I mean, even like for an individual, we only have so many hours in the day, even if this is
Mhm.
all we're focusing on. Um, so just having somebody like you that is who knows, the ins and outs, not maybe not necessarily with the particular like product or something like that, but at least you have like that know-how to be able to kind of guide, which is that's incredible and it's very important. Um, so yeah, thank you for what you do. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned a good key word there, the blueprint. And that's where it's really agnostic to industry. Entrepreneurship is the fundamental practices, the foundations, the tactics involved in it. You custom tailor it to industry. So, like, one of my key things that I offer to people, I call my strategic solutions roadmap. So it's essentially a blueprint of, hey, here's our 9 steps of where we're going to get to your 2 to 3 year plan that you're going to follow for implementation, and you're going to be agile along the way. But now you have a blueprint for what you're doing. At what point do you need to, what quarter do you need to raise money? What quarter do you need to focus on sales? Like, you start getting in that planning mode. And it's like, okay, we're hitting year 3. So halfway through year 2, let's do our next round of strategic planning. Things like that. You start thinking, not just iteratively, but also in a forecast mode.
yeah, that's awesome. Um, so what would you say was your biggest learning curve when starting MXI Consulting?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, I always think about how to answer this because I don't want to knock other consultants. Because you hear like consultants, like what's the dark art of consulting? Because we give a lot of advice. And I say that because I am one. But I wanted to remove the mystery. I wanted to give people tangible products. Um, so a lot of what I do, a lot of my learning curve came from how do I create a new way to do consulting. I can advise and I can review things, like that's great, but I want to teach companies and I want to teach my clients a good amount of knowledge share that I want to provide them, but also to understand what I do for their company so they know how to do it for their company, but also I want to deliver a number of products to them. So how do I package that? So I came up with this term a number of years ago called SAP, service as a product. And so I took consulting services and I built out my product, my strategic solutions roadmap. And so throughout the roadmap here, like I said, there's 9 key points that we focus on throughout the roadmap. Of 8 of them we're building and building and building and delivering tangible assets. These are actual deliverables I create for every business. They're custom tailored through it. And so now it's like, oh, I've got this fixed price model, this finite model of certain amount of time we're going to work together. We're going to go over your company's vision, your objectives, like where you've been, things like that. And it's a packaged model. And so from somebody who's been a customer for many years at bigger companies, I like buying things that I know I'm getting. And it's like, oh, it helps people to understand more. So yeah, that was a big learning curve for me. Is how do I create this new model of consulting for small medium businesses out there? And I've had a lot of great feedback on this. Of, hey, we're going to work together for 4 months or 6 months or on this specific thing. And at the end of it, you know exactly what you're going to get. Here's your deliverables. Here's your implementation plan. We're going to coach through some implementation. You know exactly what you're walking away with is a whole bunch of like my published workbooks and white papers and things like that as well, my guides. But also, you're going to get a whole bunch of your strategic plan documentation and market research that's specific to your business.
And that's important, especially if it's an industry that's not typical. I can speak that from personal experience because there are a lot of great, like, shiny things out there, but when it's like, they're trying to pitch based on a certain, like, maybe they only work with lawyers, but they're like, this is
Mhm.
great. And you're like, this doesn't work for me. It's not working for me. So having
Yeah.
those that's awesome. I'm not too keen on the whole consulting part. So I don't know what like most people typically give, but I can like that definitely seems like it's of extreme value because I know just talking with other businesses sometimes that are usually trying to pitch to me, I'm like, but what do I get out of that? And they're like, well,
Mhm.
we can't promise, like, can you promise this? Some of them can, but some of them like, well, we don't really probably no because, um,
Mm,
but like if I just spent, I just dropped $30,000 on your services and I'm not going to get that back in whatever
mhm.
it's like, what, why should I do this?
Right. And I hear that so much. And so like I'm a very visual person. So that's where it's like even my roadmap, like I actually have a diagram that shows like, hey, step one, two, three, four, what we're doing through the whole thing. That's where we have our first meeting is I want you to understand from a visual standpoint, where are we going on this highway together? What are you getting along the way? What are deliverables? What are touch points? Why are we meeting? Things like that. And I give them like I've got about 12 different published books and workbooks and things like that that are on this specific topic. And so I give them those books along the way. That way they have an understanding. So yeah, I mean, I'm very visual. I'm very focused on helping people to understand why we're doing what we're doing. What does that look like? How do we navigate this? Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. So, kind of veering away from MXI consulting. So, what piece of advice would you give someone wanting to start their own business, regardless of whatever industry they're in?
Yeah, so I think about when I first started my consulting firm a number of years ago, but also when I took it full time because I consulted on the side for a while I still had normal jobs, I guess you call them. So I was still working for bigger companies while I was still consulting on the side, and then I decided I was like, you know what, let's take this full time. I'm doing it. And it's there's nothing easy about entrepreneurship. I tell people all the time, you're going to grind, you're going to hustle, and then you're going to wake up one day and go, I can breathe. Okay, now how do I grind and hustle again and implement the next plan, develop the next plan, and then implement it. That's the key thing. So I always tell people, one, start with a clear vision of what you want to do and learn to be adaptable. We have a great idea of what we want, but your customer base may not share that idea. So every business has to be tailored to a customer base. So we have a great idea, be adaptable. The other one is surround yourself with a strong support system. Okay. It is just like getting out of the military. You got to have a network, you got to have a support system if you're going to be successful and you're going to transition. Just like in the world of entrepreneurship, you got to have those key people and you got to have like a large network, especially if you're a service or whether you're a service or product-based company, you need a large network. You need to be affiliated with associations, organizations. Like you need to have streams built in so that people know about you. You got to build the attraction to what you're doing, and you got to build some trust and things like that. You can't just wake up with an idea one day and go, oh, I'm starting an LLC today and I'm going to get revenue in 30 days. Like that's an anomaly. That's unheard of. That's how people go broke and then have to go fill out resumes again.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. And then really never stop learning. I do lots of certifications. I do lots of courses. I teach lots of stuff too, and I learn through teaching. So I love doing that. Take some risks. Find out where a healthy, calculated risk is. But through all of it, always prioritize your family, strong relationships, and yourself. I am very much a supporter of self-preservation. Because the statistics against entrepreneurs are very harmful when it comes to burnout. It was a 40 something percent of entrepreneurs face burnout about every 3 years.
Oh, wow.
I recently published an article on my Growth and Grit newsletter. But the burnout statistics are horrible. They really are. Increased medical issues if you don't take care of yourself, all these things. So I'm all about mindfulness meditation, getting your workouts in, taking care of your body and surround yourself with people. Like go out and have fun. You can't just work all the time, you know.
That's great advice. I think I had read something recently and it was talking about how your mind can only focus on something like full speed for a set amount of minutes. You have to take those breaks.
Mhm.
Even, nobody's working 24 hours a day, hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Yeah,
Well,
I talk a lot about capacity. I use the term capacity a lot. We only have so much capacity, and thinking that you can cram more in there is a myth. And I've talked to former bosses and employees I worked with. I was like, I only have like I don't have the capacity to do that. And they get frustrated, like, how can I argue with that? Like, you're telling me you literally don't have the capacity. Not I can't do it, because we can argue that, or I won't do it. We can argue that all day. But when you tell somebody, I don't have the capacity to do that, it's like it puts it back on them to find more resources. So when intrinsically, when we're talking about entrepreneurship, we have to understand capacity. I've got a wife, I have kids, I have a dog, I have injuries I still deal with and disabilities and stuff. So I've got medical appointments, I have clients, I have marketing. I speak, I teach. There's only so much you can do. So you learn to parse out times. You learn to effectively manage it and be proactive with it, coming back to that point of you got to learn to plan, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah, because otherwise you could. I mean, I don't. I have those days sometimes when I have like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to do all these things, and then
Hmm.
tomorrow comes and I didn't do any of those things because I, I didn't write them out. I didn't prioritize. I'm like, dang.
Hmm. Yeah, and then you wake up, or you wake up and it's like, oh, I had all these things listed out, 45-minute blocks, give myself a 15-minute break between, and something happened overnight that I woke up to, and it's all going to change today.
Yeah, that's your
Yeah.
adaptability that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Those things happen. So what are you most excited about right now with MXI Consulting? I know you have a lot of cool things under your hat, and so what are you most excited about right now?
Really, it's the potential in the landscape right now for growth and innovation with budding technology. I've worked in tech for a number of years. I'm a partner in a tech company also, and we're in a fascinating point where tech is affecting your independently owned storefronts in rural cities now. The entire business cycle has shifted from 5 years to two, and that's solely because of technology development, and how rapid it is. Everybody used to do strategic plans for 5 years. Anybody that tells me they have a 5-year strategic plan, I tell them they wasted 3 years. You can't plan that far ahead. It's 24 months, and that's dictated actually because of technology. So the tech industry has now dictated our business cycles in every industry now. So globally, we've become dependent on technology for every landscape, every industry out there. And so and I see that. I'm working with a very small company, in a mountain rural area, and they've got a storefront, and they're looking to grow. They're looking to build an online presence. I was like, that's great. You're thinking about that. So and I see that. I see laundromat owners looking, how can I implement technology that helps me be more efficient so I can buy, or build another one or two, or, serial franchisees, or tech companies, even, recruiting companies. We see it all the time. And so, it gives that budding technology has been fascinating, especially over the last year. I spent a lot of time working with AI companies to really, understand it, but also understand, kind of going back to, that metanoia part of it, is how can we do this differently? One, I will always go on record to say AI should never replace a person's job. I am a supporter that every employee in every business needs to learn how to be an operator of AI now. If not, then you'll work yourself out of a job. Absolutely. Because the next person will know how to operate it and will know how to be more effective than you. And so with AI, like, there's ways to use it that are morally and ethically good, but there's ways to use it on top of that we can now adopt it into small businesses and allow them to build an employee base that their current employees have as a resource. So now, you got employees with employees. You start emulating, companies that are 3, 4, 5 times your size, and you can be really efficient and really effective. You can do more. That becomes scale up models, things like that. So learning how AI can work for us, not replace us, is really, really fascinating. That, combined with everything that's going on with Web 3.0, every business is affected by them anymore. So I love seeing this, this interchange of technology with entrepreneurship. I think it's a fascinating time to be in.
Yeah, it certainly is. And to be able to have AI help you. I mean, essentially, I mean, so like, yeah, that, I mean, that's a big thing, right? Like, I know, I see it in a lot of different industries, chat rooms and that type of thing. Chat rooms, is that really a thing anymore? Like Facebook groups or groups.
I would say I do remember those. I think that was like the AOL online, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness, I think I just showed my age here. So, like, but, everyone's talking about, like, "Oh, are you af are I'm nervous about, like, if we're gonna make it through, AI can take over my job, it can do all of these things," and I'm like, "But something still has to run that." Like,
Hmm.
all it's gonna do is make you more proficient in what you're doing, which
Hmm.
will lead to more growth. Um, it's very interesting. I'm right there with you on that whole it's very exciting that you get to see that stuff firsthand and deal with that too. I'm really, um
Well, and it ties into a lot of the things that, I'm passionate about, and very interested in. Like I was talking about capacity. Well,
Mhm.
if every human employee now has, three, four AI employees that emulate them, and it's like having a manager that has, a team of technicians that work for him.
Yeah.
Now you're just adding more technicians, which means you as the manager are more effective in growing your area and doing your job. And so, as humans, we only have so much capacity. But now, if we can take our tasks and parse them out to AI resources, again, you do it from a moral and ethical standpoint where you build those AI tools off of your content, off of your experience. You train it, things like that. So, like I have a program called HR.ai where I teach AR departments and HR managers how to build a hybrid. So HR.ai stands for hybrid resources, not human. So every
Okay.
human in a company has multiple AI employees under them.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just another tool to that small businesses can use to get their employees at a very low cost, low budget amount, additional resources to be efficient.
Nice. And bring back the whole mental health capacity of the
Yes.
people that are trying to do like 10 different the job of 10
Hmm.
people. Um,
Absolutely.
that is definitely a thing. And along with the burnout. So
Yes.
So, where do you see MXI Consulting in the next year?
Yeah, so in the next year, our trajectory really is built off of our strategic initiatives and plan. And we're in a scale-up model right now. So we're expanding our client base regularly. We've expanded into a variety of industries. We're putting together and packaging new services even. So over the next year, we'll release about 4 new services. Again, going to that SAP model, that service as a product, so that people can sign up and go, hey, I know what the flat fee is for, this specific product that we're going to work together on. And really, enhancing uh, our impact within the consulting industry. Consulting has been going on for many years, and there's such a unique flavor of types of consulting services. I'm a growth and strategy consultant. So how can I enhance that industry? How can I impact it? Whether it's through knowledge sharing, like I get a post out to LinkedIn every day on, strategy, on growth, on AI adoption, things like this. I write, articles on my Growth and Grit newsletter. My email list gets resources that I share to them, and even some of the behind the scenes things I'm working on, things like that, that I'll share a little video here and there about some crazy stuff I'm working on. And so really it's about knowledge sharing at that point.
And typically I would ask, how about in 5 years? But you've already told me that I can't do that. So, how about in 2 years?
Yeah, really. So in 2 years, so with our plan over the next 12 months of implementing these new services and these new verticals, these new areas, it's now managing that scaled growth, because after you implement and you grow, then you have to make sure that you assess your growth, make sure your infrastructure can support that. If not, then you quickly need to adjust and bring in more resources to support that. And you have your infrastructure in place as a good foundation for your growth. Otherwise, you won't be able to provide a quality service to your clients. And then also, continuing to scale our employee base. I'll have multiple associates, multiple consultants I work with. Right now, I already have some associates that I work with as well that provide services to me, and some other consultants I work with. But getting to a point where, we have multiple in-house consultants and associates as well would be great, on a full-time basis. Mhm.
That's exciting. Very exciting.
Thank you. I'm excited for it.
So how can our fellow veterans best support you?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. I love to give back to others, and so I always ask for support. Growing a business is not easy. So it does take a community. It does take a strong support network. So I always encourage people. If you're looking for ways to support me, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the most active platform I'm on. That's where I share everything. Connect with me. Send me a message. If there's opportunities to collaborate or partner. I'm always open to that. Subscribe to my Growth and Grit newsletter. Go to my landing page. You actually see it in my header on the video here. And you can get some free resources as well. So you even get, one of the roadmaps is a downloadable resource for your own business. So kind of a guide to what it looks like to go through a roadmap. Engage with our services. We offer a number of services. Our primary one is that strategic solutions roadmap, but we have a variety of services. Give me some feedback. I'm always open to feedback. That's really helped me be very agile in my businesses. Absolutely. And so any support, insights, things like that are just invaluable to growth and success. So I welcome that collaboration with people. Absolutely.
Very cool. Well, thank you. So that is all the questions that I have for you today. And I would love to have like a follow-up interview, I guess maybe in a year or 2 years if you're open to that. Um, but in the meantime, give us your pitch.
Yeah, and I am definitely open to following up with you in a year or two. I'd love to see, especially comparing it back to this video. Let's see what I said and let's see where we went. And I can guarantee you we were agile and pivoted somewhere along the way, whether it's, from, an economic landscape change, a political landscape change, who knows? So thank you for that opportunity. But yeah, so at MXI Consulting, we combine deep industry knowledge with strategic expertise to help your business navigate challenges and seize those opportunities. So we welcome you to reach out and let us show you how our strategic solutions roadmap will unlock your growth potential for your specific company.
Thank you so much for sharing
You're
your
very welcome.
knowledge and thanks.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Cindy. Yeah, it was a pleasure.